Ripple lawsuit to be decided in New York as XRP loses its appeal to a California court. Everyone was talking about this yesterday. I had commenters even saying, oh no, Ripple has got itself in some trouble and we might see a huge dip. And this is the news that's been breaking. People talking about what's happening with this Ripple lawsuit. We have Bloomberg just posting an article that drew attention to this news, even though if you look, there's no new data and nothing new has been provided, even though this original article was posted 3 months ago. We have this article that came out March 12th on Bloomberg that talks about the blockchain developer Ripple Labs lost its shot at home court advantage in a dispute with the R3 consortium. This interview is actually new, so we're going to watch it, and then we're going to talk about how this news is old and this headline created a resharing of old information. So let's check this out, this interview first.
What's next at Transamerica.com.
Ripple CEO Brett Garlinghouse, he joins us right now. And you know, David, some say Ripple could be the next Bitcoin. What do you think, Brett? Is that a compliment that Ripple could be the next Bitcoin?
Well, I think if we're solving a real problem and it's at scale, then I think it's a compliment. I think the most important thing that is going on in crypto is understanding what is real and what is just hype. Some, I think, may look back on Bitcoin and find that it was the Napster of digital assets. What I mean by that is Napster was the first to digitize music and demonstrate, hey, if you digitize music, you can do a lot of cool things with that. But ultimately, they were circumventing trademark laws, they were circumventing royalty payments, and government stepped in, and Napster was not successful. But Spotify, iTunes, Pandora, they were very successful. I think what you'll find is that maybe the next generation of digital assets ends up solving some of the original problems that Bitcoin set out to solve.
So RippleNet is trying to take on Swift. What's been the traction like? Who's come on board?
Well, it's interesting as you step back and look at this. If you and I decided we were going to send $10,000 to California today, the fastest way for us to do it would be to drive to the airport and fly it there. That's a crazy thing to think about when you're in the age of the internet and we're used to information on demand. When we think about the customers that have come on board, it's because we're solving that real problem. We're changing the nature of a payment taking days to settle to California to seconds. So we now have well over 100 customers ranging from some of the biggest banks in the world to payment providers to the Western Unions and MoneyGrams, Linlan Pay out of China.
How many banks?
It's over 100. I actually don't know the exact number now. Last time we announced it publicly, we said over 100. We'll probably announce the next one when we get to over 200. We're signing up more than a bank a week now.
The thing is, it's not the number of banks. It's the volume
for sure
out there. What kind of volume are you looking at?
Well, we've had one that we could talk publicly about. Is we have one corridor and run by SEB, which is one of the first or second largest bank in Sweden, has done over $1 billion USD equivalent through one corridor. So while on the global macro scale, that we're still just getting started. I think we're on mile 1 of a marathon, but we've crossed that starting line. Like, this is real activity in production systems where customers are really benefiting from that. We clearly have a long way to go, and the overall maturity of the digital asset market, I think, is a long way to go. But if we keep going back to let's focus on a real problem and solve a real problem for real customers, I'm really optimistic.
You have several products. We talked about the system, RippleNet. You also have a digital token, which is the XRP. How's the XRP doing? Because we saw it surge 1,300%.
Right. So XRP actually was the best performing digital asset in 2017. It was up, I think, something like 25,000%. The excitement around digital assets is because I think you're solving a real problem. And I think one of the things you saw happen, particularly last December, is there's understandably concern about regulation and what does that mean for digital assets. From the get-go, Ripple has worked with regulators, and we have worked with regulated institutions like banks where there isn't regulatory uncertainty. And so we have found that part of the reason why XRP has performed well is because people realize, hey, wait a minute, back to your question, is XRP the next Bitcoin? If we work with the system to solve this problem, and we can solve that problem at scale, a problem measured in the trillions of dollars, then there's a lot of opportunity to create value in XRP.
But how can there be clarity on regulation when different countries are adopting different strategies when it comes to regulation? And the other thing as well is volatility. I mean, why use a cryptocurrency when it's so volatile right now?
Yeah. So look, it's a really important question. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there. I've kind of jokingly suggested that when people talk about regulatory uncertainty, it's often people because they don't like the regulation. They're not actually regulatory uncertainty. If you think about the XRP transaction from one regulated financial institution, a bank or a payment provider, they're doing what's called a KYC check, which references Know Your Customer. There's a global regulatory framework around KYC. That's at both endpoints of an XRP transaction, into and out of. So I think the regulatory certainty actually is much better than people realize. It's just educating banks, regulators about how it actually works. Now, the volatility point is also a good one. You know, XRP has clearly been volatile, as all digital assets have been. The nature of how an XRP transaction works, though, it's 1,000 times faster than Bitcoin. So the volatility risk you're taking around XRP is only for 3 seconds. So the volatility risk ends up being very, 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 very small because it's so fast.
For XRP, you've been looking at banks. If you take a longer-term period, who else are you targeting for XRP? What would make sense?
Well, I think any payment provider, you know, we're really trying to solve that cross-border payment transaction. So if you're going, you know, we talked earlier about the US dollar to the Mexican peso. It's one of the corridors we have live with XRP today. You can hold a US dollar, sell that dollar, and buy XRP. In 3 seconds, you can move that XRP to Mexico and then sell the XRP and buy the Mexican peso. Whether you're a bank, a payment provider, eventually even corporates can take advantage of a dramatic decrease in cost and a dramatic increase in speed and how those transactions work.
All right, Brad, we have to live it there. The first mile in a marathon. Brad Garlinghouse, CEO of Ripple.
So he addresses a lot of good things. This is a good interview, actually, because he answers questions that I've seen you guys ask in the comments before. The first one he addressed that I've seen you ask is the 3-second transaction time and the risk for banks to use it as a store of value. I think people have asked this a couple different ways. Someone has asked, well, why would banks buy it for $1,000 each? And they've also said, well, why would banks use it if it's not stable? But he addresses both those questions with the 3-second transaction resolve for cross-border payments. And what he means is that the banks are actually not buying the amount of XRP at cost and holding it at cost. They're just moving their funds through XRP as an intermediary. So the 3-second volatility transition means that if XRP transitions inside 3 seconds, they would experience that shift, but most likely XRP is not going to have that much volatility inside a 3-second window. So it'll probably stay at the same price for those 3 seconds, and they would just move straight across between whatever fiat currencies they were transacting. That's how he addresses that. They don't necessarily have to buy it and hold it. They're just using it as an intermediary. Unlike Vostro and Nostro accounts where they do need to buy and hold all these stores of cash to then trade out, XRP eliminates the need for those accounts, which is why people are saying they're going to use it anyway. He also addresses another thing that's interesting to look at, KYC, the Know Your Customer concept. And this is something that we're going to go into in a Ripple versus Bitcoin video. But what he's saying too, the KYC Know Your Customer is an interesting standard of regulation that they're trying to push in crypto, because for the most part, a lot of cryptos don't know, you don't have a KYC. There's not, and in banks, that is a standard of the industry, Know Your Customer for transactions. And that's one of the scariest things about Bitcoin for them, is that you can have a anonymous wallet. You don't know who owns that wallet, and that would not qualify for a KYC Know Your Customer transaction. They're already basically in sight for regulations worldwide, which puts them almost leagues ahead of some of the other true cryptocurrencies in a sense. So this interview is exciting to see. It's fun to see him addressing the questions that you guys are asking, and it's also, he always uses his favorite analogy about flying money in a plane. You can read this article and it talks about Ripple losing its bid to keep the cryptocurrency fight in California. But again, even though this article just came out March 12th and you guys were asking me what was my take on it, if you look back, the article actually was originally posted all the way in January. The first one coming out January 4th, right here. The R3 lawsuit against Ripple is now worth $19 billion. In this article, they actually go into great depth about the dealings of the lawsuit, the actual reality of the contract that was breached, and also it even goes as far as the appeal of both R3 and Ripple to take the court case out into another court, and both R3 was denied their appeal for Delaware and Ripple was denied their appeal for a court in California. And all this information was available 3 months ago. So I saw someone posted a video that said, oh, I need to address this because I don't see anybody on YouTube addressing it. Well, no one's addressing it because it's old news. And it's nice that they posted this with this really misleading title, Ripple loses bid to keep its cryptocurrency fight in California. Again, old news being regurgitated by the media to create some stir in Ripple. Thinking about this lawsuit too, I don't think it's that big a deal if they win or lose either way in the long run. If you're a day trader, it may be a huge pivot point. If you're a long-term holder, I think it's just another moog point in the long stream of misinformation around Ripple. That's about all we're going to do for this video. Thanks for watching and chiming in. If you guys are worried about this lawsuit and you have some new information that I didn't catch or I'm not aware of, please link it in the comments or tell me and I'd happily check it out. Thanks for watching again. As always, I'm not a financial advisor or fiduciary, so just watching these videos and then making your own decisions and doing your own research is the best course of action. As always, don't forget to click that like button and click that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time. Have a great day.
Brought to you by your team.